Welcome to the March the 17th, 1992 taping of It Happened in Grand Prairie as we bring you our history tape number 168. And we are so excited today. Before bringing you our honored guest, I'd like to tell you a little bit about this week. On March the 20th, 1909, Grand Prairie became a corporate city. And this weekend, we're going to be celebrating on the 20th and the 21st the birthday of the corporate city of Grand Prairie. His story is going to be reenacted, History Week is going to be celebrated, and the Outdoor Learning Center is going to be dedicated. To really commemorate the history of Grand Prairie, Texas, we thought, well, now who could we have on this show that would just so fit into this slot and is a very special person to Grand Prairie, Texas. The only woman mayor in Grand Prairie, Texas, so far in our history. We are very pleased to bring former mayor, Mrs. Ann Gresham, married to Willie Gresham. Welcome to the set, Miss Ann.
Thank you very much, Ruthie. Delighted to be
I
here.
noticed with a great deal of interest that we're having something on our arm, and we'll talk about that later, won't we?
Okay.
All right. Mrs. Willie Gresham, Ann Gresham, Your Honor, we are so excited, and we want you to establish your genealogy to open this history tape by looking to your camera, telling us a little bit about your parents, name your brothers and sisters, where your parents located in Texas, where you came from before you came to Grand Prairie, and give us about a 5-minute dissertation. Will you do that?
Okay. It'll take more than 5 minutes to name brothers and sisters. I have,
Oh, right.
There are 8 of us children.
All right.
My mother and father are were residents of Lott, Texas, which is down below Waco. That's where they were married, and my father's father was the lay Church of Christ minister there, and dedicated the land and the building to the church, and still stands and is still being used as the Church of Christ in Lott, Texas. We have lots of relatives still down there. There would be no way to try to tell you who all. My grandmother came from Georgia and was the character of the city, rode in the Centennial Parade on a donkey in a clown suit when she was 72 years old.
Oh, way to go.
Which more than frustrated my grandfather.
Yes.
He was not pleased with that at all. I am from a large family. I have, the oldest child is a daughter, Ava Spencer, who lives in Oak Cliff. 5 brothers immediately following that, Jack, James, Bill, Charles, and Bob, then me, and then my youngest sister, Pat, who lives in Oak Cliff. All my family lives in Oak Cliff now, with the exception of one brother who is a PhD minister in the Presbyterian Church, lives in North Carolina, and one who is a dance teacher and lives in Lawton, Oklahoma, or previously was a dance teacher.
All right, now I want you to name your mother's name, maiden name in full. Would you do that?
My mother's maiden name was Annie B. Bull. My father's name was Jack Bruce Story.
Okay, so now the Stories lived in Lott, Texas, and as you were growing up, did you grow up in Lott, Texas, or
No.
did you move around? And what did your dad do for a living?
My father worked for Austin Bridge Company. He was in the construction business. He started out as a blacksmith, of course, in his very early years in Lott. Became a millwright, which is a part of construction business. He set machinery. And consequently, we lived everywhere. I was actually born in Waco.
Born in Waco, Texas.
And my family moved to Dallas intermittently, off and on. Every few years, we'd move back to Dallas for assignments somewhere else. I graduated from Austin Junior High School, graduated from Marlin High School, went to college at Cameron College in Lawton, Oklahoma.
Cameron College in Lawton, Oklahoma.
Which then was a junior college, but now is a full 4-year university.
All right, now let's go back to the Lott, Texas area, or where did you begin your elementary school education? Tell us if you
Well, I
remember.
actually began elementary school in Dallas.
In Dallas, at what school?
At Fannin.
At Fannin School?
Fannin over in far Dallas.
Yes.
And I've been to so many schools in Dallas, I wouldn't even attempt to remember all of them
All
for
right,
you.
in all of your elementary schools that you've attended, did you have a mentor or someone that really spurred you on or really did set your sights on being able to excel and want to be a better Ann Gresham?
Well, I have to say yes. It was not a woman who was actually a lovable person. She was principal of the elementary school in Waco, and was a woman who had brought to that school, of course at that time there was only one elementary school in North Waco, had brought into the curriculum of that school the old Walter Damrosch music program, which we went into the cafeteria every week and had our little weekly newspaper which told us all about the symphonies that were going to be played that day. And we had art classes that were not just sitting down dot to dot. We actually were they were trying to teach us art. She had the finest curriculum of the only school in Waco, by the way, or anywhere I have ever been since, even all over Dallas, who offered those programs.
Oh,
and as a result of that, she encouraged through those programs. I would suspect that at least 30% of the children who went through her 6 grades in Waco Elementary School either went into some form of art or music.
And culture.
She just absolutely was fantastic.
That's wonderful.
Very strict. No.
Do you remember her name?
Miss Nettie Bird.
Miss Nettie Bird.
Never forget her. Mm-hmm.
Isn't that wonderful? All right, now on to...
I thought she was older than half the world.
Than Dallas.
As it happened, she probably wasn't but about 40 years old, but she was wonderful.
Yes. All right, then on to Austin Junior High. Where was that located?
Austin Junior High School is on Brazos Street, just across from the University of Texas. The concept of Austin Junior High is probably wonderful, but it's probably one of the worst schools that anybody ever went to, primarily because they take the practice teachers from the university, come over and teach, which means that in instances such as math, I had 6 weeks of geometry, 6 weeks of algebra, 6 weeks of all the stuff that you really need a full time. Consequently, when we left Austin, and went to Marlin, and I was a sophomore in high school, I had to take first and second year algebra at the same time, which was a very, very difficult thing to have to do. But I had not had enough math to really be a sophomore and junior in high school.
All right, at this junior high, was there anyone special you remember that helped you over the short courses and the rough bumps, or anyone that was a mentor particularly?
I don't remember that there was in junior high, Ruthie, because as I say, we had so many teachers who came just for 6 weeks at the time, did their practice teaching, so there was never an opportunity to really get acquainted with or close to anybody.
Let's go to Marlin, and on into Marlin, where you took double courses in math and everything. What happened? What was Ann really interested in high school, and were you into athletics, were you academics, were you into speech, debate, or whatever?
Music.
Into music.
Was in the band for 3 years.
All right.
Was in the Glee Club for 3 years.
All right.
That's an old sounding expression, isn't it, Glee Club? But that's what we were. Sang, within the Glee Club, sang in a trio, which was sort of spotlighted on occasion. Our band won all-state marching band and marched at the University of Texas and Arkansas football game down the heart of Austin.
Yes. Any one person?
Probably in high school in Marlin was another of the finest teachers I ever had, a lady by the name of Mary Louise Thaxton.
That used to be here in Grand Prairie as a librarian.
I couldn't believe when I moved to Grand Prairie, our oldest son took dancing from Maxine Breithoff and went to the recital, and there was Mary Louise Thaxton. I could not believe it, but she was the most outstanding English teacher that I have ever had the honor to go to school under. Another toughie.
She was tough.
She was tough. She had study hall. You went into study hall, you knew that's what you were there for.
You bet.
But she knew English and she could teach it.
All right, and then after that, what took you to Oklahoma to the junior college?
Well, I have a brother, third oldest child, second oldest brother, who has been a dancer always. He was danced with the old Orpheum circuit back during the Depression years when they had stage shows that traveled all over the country and actually did this sort of thing. And when he finally had about all of that showbiz that he could tolerate, he went to Lawton at the request of some retired friends he had met to open a dance studio, and that was in 1936.
All right.
And he's been there all these many years. But he had they formed what they called an Academy of Arts. He taught dancing. There was a gentleman who taught popular piano music, a lady who taught classical piano, and a lady who taught voice. And that's what I went to Lawton for, was to take voice lessons from Miss Lavinia Young.
All right, and
Promptly was elected cheerleader, destroyed my voice.
Oh,
so everybody was,
destroyed.
nobody was happy about it. Started out a coloratura soprano and ended up singing bass.
Yes.
It's just about that.
Oh,
but cheerleading was so much fun.
Wasn't that fun?
And that's what you had to do in those days.
Yes, and at college level
Oh,
too.
yeah.
Oh, that was big fun.
Super outstanding.
What were your sights on in that junior college? What you want to become your career, or did you just kind of play in college?
No, had I had the personal discipline, actually I would love to have become a dancer or a singer. I took dancing course all my life.
Yes.
And I really, my brother has, during all those years up there, had several students who went on to star in Broadway shows, and he had 3 girls who graduated from his area, and he was able to get into the Rockettes, and that was my next step. He had me
Ready
pretty
for the
well ready
Rockettes.
for the Rockettes. But I say I passed my curriculum at Cameron College, but I just didn't have the discipline to give up everything you had to give up to stay in that sort of business. And believe you me, it's
a
24
sacrifice.
hours,
Yes,
24 hours. And it just didn't seem like what I wanted to give up my life for.
All right. Now, let's turn this little interview around to a young man that could not be here today, that is home sort of babysitting a young lady that is your granddaughter that is so special that fell and hurt herself. But let's
Broke her leg.
Broke her leg. Isn't
today,
that the
so-
pits? It really is.
And we have a great granddaughter who's 3.5. He's babysitting her too. So.
All right. Willie Gresham, a very special young man. I'd like for you to tell us about William Carter Gresham Sr. Give his genealogy and look out into your camera, and let's establish him now in this little program.
Well, I'm going to be very embarrassed about some of this because
All right.
I'm not positive where all his family came from.
That's all
because
right.
his father died before we were married, and I've never had much opportunity to find out all his background. But his father was Bert Thomas Gresham. His mother was Marguerite Stallsworth, who, in a real roundabout fashion, I can tell you her, Ms. Gresham's brother married the sister to the Kieslers here in Grand Prairie.
Oh, I
I mean,
see.
you know, you
The
just
Kiesler,
always...
Cymbeline Kiesler?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right.
He has, Willie has one sister, Frances, who lives down in the valley. Her husband was an oil man, or is an oil man, retired. He has 4 brothers. Herbert, who is lived in Grand Prairie, but was living here, in fact, was instrumental in our moving to Grand Prairie.
All right.
And his wife, Lydia, taught school here till she finally retired. Everybody in the world knows Lydia. Then he has a brother, Harry, who is in the insurance business, aircraft insurance business. He flies a lot. Joseph, who is was in the abstract business, and he lives in Dallas also. And John T., who is retired, lives down in the old hometown of Centerville. That's where they're
Yes.
from. And John T. is just retired from the prison guard system.
Okay. How did you meet Willie Gresham?
Well, we both went to work at North American. I came home from college, and I went to work at North American. And
And that is the North American
That is-
Aviation that came here in
it became
1940.
Tempico. It
All right.
became Vought.
When did you go to work for North American, and when did Willie, and what departments were you in?
Oh, gosh. I guess I went to work at North American in about 1943, 42, 43.
All right. What department, night or day?
Oh, nights, work nights. I was in the release department. We released all the work orders that
Yes.
went down to the shop to be produced.
All right.
And he was in the welding shop out in the plant, and he went to work about the same time. He had finished some courses at SMU, and I believe
Yes.
that he went about 1942 or 3, something like that.
All right. Who introduced
So
you to Willie?
Well, it was a departmental party, dance.
All right. Okay.
I don't know how many people will remember the old El Tivoli place out on Fort Worth Avenue.
Yes.
And every nearly every night, I guess. Some
I've been
department-
overlooking for that, and I cannot find
It's
it
gone.
anymore.
They've torn it down. It was absolutely one of the
Just
finest
gorgeous.
old buildings.
Yes.
Golf course, the whole
Yes.
works. In fact, that's where Mustang Village is, where
Yes.
the prefab houses were built for people to live in after
Yes.
the war was over. Anyway, I went to the departmental dance, and he
Met
was
Willie.
there with some of his friends, and met him. And he'd kill me for telling this, but I'd love to tell everybody that he got what he deserved. He searched for me for 2 weeks before he could meet me and ask me for a date.
Isn't that
But the minute
wonderful?
we met, that was it. I mean, we've been
You-
either went together or got married soon. Well, let's see. I guess we got married about, we went together about 9 months before we finally got married.
All right, that is
He went to the
wonderful.
Navy
And you, then he went to the Navy and was in the Navy for a while, and you continued to working in
till
North America.
1946.
All right, and then coming back home, what happened to Willie then? You were still
Well, he
working
was
at the
discharged and
plant?
came
All right.
home, and of course there were no, my mother and father in the meantime sold their home and bought an apartment house so we'd all have a place to live.
Okay.
Anybody who came back to Dallas after 1941 or 46 remembers that there was absolutely no place to live. And so Mother and Daddy sold their home, bought an apartment house, and the whole family moved into all the apartments.
That's wonderful.
And it was. We had the best time in the world. But it was sort of someone moved in the back door and someone moved out the front as they found an apartment or something themselves. And Willie's brother, Herbert, and his wife lived in Avion Village. And he got us an apartment in Avion Village
And
because
you
he
know,
was on
this
the
is
board
the-
of directors.
This is the 50th birthday of Avion Village. It was in December.
Greatest place that people ever had to go live.
And
It
that's
kept
where
us
you
from having
started
a
your
slum.
home.
Oh, you bet.
Good.
Lived there for...
You remember the street?
We first moved on Wrong Way in the
All right.
apartment.
All right.
And then we only had Carter then. And then when I got pregnant with Jackie, we had to move into a little flat top house. We moved to Fairchild.
That's great. All right, now speaking...
And know the people, all the prominent people in those days in Grand Prairie started out in Avion Village.
All right, now we're up to the children. You've named one or two of them, but let's start with your first son. Give his name and
Okay.
his wife's name and family, anything you'd like to
He's,
say, and name the grandchildren.
Oh, certainly.
All
William Carter Gresham Jr., oldest, married to Deborah Donovan, whose mother was Betty Jo Wilson Donovan, and the Poindexters and everybody. They were all born and
All
raised
kin.
in Grand Prairie, and
Yeah.
we just couldn't have looked the world over and found a better wife. for
They have
Carter.
children.
They have 2 daughters, Amy, who is a second year at Texas Tech, and Paige, who is 13.
All right.
2 girls.
Is she in school?
Oh yeah, honor student.
And where?
Honor student.
You would name it.
Well, I would if I knew the name of it. They live in Arlington.
All right.
And all I know is she will go into Lamar High School.
Oh, that's great. That's good territory.
That's where Amy graduated from Lamar.
All right, you have another
Then
son.
we have Jack, who is lives in Alaska. He's been in Alaska for 22 years. Jack has a daughter, 23, who lives here. That's his granddaughter who's home with a broken bone.
Give us her name.
Her name is Gina,
And-
Gina Ann Gresham, and
where
her
does-
little girl is Olivia Nicole Gresham.
All right.
Jackie's still in Alaska. Olivia lives here. I mean, Gina lives here in Grand Prairie, and he since married again and has 2 other sons. JT, Jack Thomas Jr., is the oldest, and he's 11, and then the baby is Colin Phillip, and he is 3.
All right.
He's going to be graduating and supporting kids till he's 102, but he really strung them out.
All right. Now let's get on to politics. We have probably about 5 more minutes left in this interview, and that's not enough time to tell about your career in politics. What got you into politics, Miss Ann?
Ruthie, I think probably the thing that gets most people involved, of course, my father always insisted that we all pay poll tax and vote, and discussed politics every night at dinner. And so I've always been aware of what was going on and became active. I have a brother who is an attorney in Dallas and was a judge and was on the Dallas City Council at one time, so I have worked in a lot of campaigns. But just one of those sitting around mouthing and griping about what's going on, and someone said, well, if you aren't pleased, why don't you run and do something about it? And I said, okay, and I did.
All right. So you ran for the council seat first. Is that your first?
I was elected in 1976.
All right.
Had 3 terms on the council, and then ran for mayor and was elected mayor for 1 term.
Tell me about being a council member during the time when you were at large and we did not have single member districts at that time. What was the greatest excitement of your career as a council member?
You know, really, looking back, I cannot remember, I can remember some battles that we used to have, a few of them, but really, we were at such a point. I guess the thing that bothered me the most was trying to do sometimes the things that I thought were better for the city as a whole, when neighbors were opposed to it, or friends all across the city might be opposed to it, and still you felt that as having been elected by everybody in the city, you had to cast votes that sometimes were not always popular with people. Those were the hard times.
How about being mayor? What was the highlight of your mayoral career? Or if you want, just give us a...
I guess the highlight of it, Ruthie, was having people say to me that they appreciated the fact that I always behaved as a lady, and I was able to get a council to work together. We very rarely had, and certainly even rarer than that, had disagreements out in public. Our disagreements were held in the back room, and by the time we got to the council chamber, we were, everybody knew pretty much how they were going to vote. I don't mean that we swayed people's minds, but we treated each other with courtesy and respect. And once an issue had been voted on, regardless of how heated we were about it, that was put behind us, and we went on to the next one. We didn't hold grudges. I served with probably, 20 different people in those 8 years, and I can truthfully say to this good day, we're still good friends. I still respect every one of them, and they did everything in their world that they possibly could in an honest manner to help this city.
All right, now the next thing, during the time that you were on the council and mayor, you met many important people. Who are the most important people? Tell me something exciting about your serving on a National League of Cities and all this good stuff.
Elected to the board of directors of the National League of Cities. Was very pleased, and still have the pictures, to have sat in front, right directly in front of President Reagan at the time he came to address the National League. I was on the honor dais, and met, of course, many representatives and senators in Washington.
And you personally know many right at this time. I know, like Senator Benson. Name some of your high-powered friends.
Well, let me start with one of my certainly Senator Benson, and I've known him for many years, and I'm very fond of him and have a lot of respect for him. Disagree with him sometimes, but still very fond of him. Martin Frost is a good close friend and has been since before he ever ran. We've had, I guess one of my oldest political friends really is Governor Ann Richards, and we started out years ago in Dallas in politics with Democratic. I am a Democrat, by the way, in case anybody can't tell by the names I'm dropping.
Yes.
Although I have been fortunate to have met and have a good relationship with a lot of Republican elected officials. The Speaker of the House, Jim Wright, was a good friend of mine, and still to this good day, I can get in touch with him when I need to.
Yes.
Those are the kind of people that you feel like we're really friends when they still answer the phone for you when you're out of office.
Did you know President Johnson?
I knew President Johnson. As a matter of fact, I was invited to his funeral. We went to Austin and to a special session of the House for his memorial service, and then went by bus, 4 bus loads, to out to the ranch, to the burial, where Anita Bryant sang a cappella, and it was absolutely gorgeous. Then that lovely Lady Bird had reception out in the airplane hangar for everybody who was there. They were all mostly just members of government. And of course that was before I was a member of government, but I was very pleased to have been invited to that.
All right, a couple of other things. Your church and the PTA, I know you're a life member and were president of a PTA. You better name drop. We have about 2 minutes.
Started PTA when Carter first started first grade at Crockett School, and the second year was elected secretary, and I think served in that capacity for 100 years, and then was elected the 3rd president of Ben Milam School, and served in that capacity for 2 years. That's when I was given my life membership.
Yes.
Went on through junior high school, was vice president and program chairman at Lee Junior High, and into high school. Then I sort of dropped out of PTA. You find that some people get burnt out. You never did, Ruthie. You still just burn both candles. But I really did just sort of quit. But now when my granddaughter started to school, I had to get back into PTA with her, and I suspect I'll start when this one starts also.
When the baby doll goes.
Right.
All right, now how about your church?
Okay, my church, I am a member of St. Andrew's, or was St. Andrew's Episcopal Church. I now go to St. Charles Anglican Church, and up on Northwest 17th Street, and have held some fine offices in that church, president of the women and central deanery chairman. Those titles really don't mean anything to anybody who's not in that church, because you don't understand what they really encompass. But it's to me, it's a very rewarding church. It's most
And you're
comforting.
always serving as a judge at the elections. I know
yes.
recently when we had
Absentee
the
election.
primary, you were right
I worked
there with
last Tuesday. I worked 2.5 weeks from February the 29th, February 19th to March the 6th on the early voting, and then last Tuesday at the precinct level election.
All right,
yeah,
now.
we do all that.
I know you
It's-
do. What happens on the weekend? Do you and Willie have
We have a place at Lake Fork.
at Lake
And
Fork? Where is this
Lake
located?
Fork is a lovely, lovely, hottest bass fishing lake in the state of Texas, out of Emory, Alba, Mineola,
In what county?
Wood County,
In Wood
and
County.
we're about 29 miles from Greenville. That's the easiest way to southeast of Greenville. And we just go up there, and he fishes, and I just sit out on the deck and read and watch the birds eat and chirp, and love it. It's our real relaxation.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for your special service to the city of Grand Prairie, your love of it, your community service, PTA, church, all of the good things that you do, and that Willie does also, but holds up your hands while you do maybe a little more than
That's
he
the
does.
big thing.
That's the main thing. But I'd like for you to look out into your camera now, and we have about 1 minute left. I'd like for you to give your philosophy of life to the young people, how important it is to persevere, whether it's in dance, culture, politics, or whatever. It's yours for a minute.
Okay, if I may say that have tried in all my last many years to be as understanding of modern music as I can be. It is not my forte and not my first love, but I would say to anybody, any child, at whatever age, and to any parent who has young children, it's very important to expose children, just the same as exposing them to going to Sunday school and church every Sunday. It's very important to expose them to good music. From having an appreciation of good music, it gives you a desire to learn a little bit about art. You don't have to be an expert, but just give them that opportunity to learn a little bit of something about it. And sure enough, they may turn out to be a Rembrandt. You just don't know. I today serve as a member of the board of directors of the Dallas-Fort Worth Medical Center, thinking that after I got out of office, I must be surely through. But my children respect me for the things I still do, and are proud of it. So
I want to thank you, Ann Gresham. You've been wonderful to come and share your
thank
life
you, Ruth.
with a broken arm, a broken leg at home, Willie watching over things. And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do.